Hey guys, Henry here. Today we're making pumpkin pie. In the ingredients I show here, I include the ingredients for crust, but I couldn't get it to work, so disregard that. I'll leave the links to some pie crust recipes in the description. For this recipe, we'll need 1 pie crust, 1 15-ounce can of pumpkin puree or 2 sugar pumpkins, 12 ounces of a 14-ounce can of sweetened condensed milk or 3 cups of milk, half a cup of heavy cream, 1.5 cups of sugar, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And for the rest of the filling, an additional 1/4 cup of heavy cream, 2 eggs, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, a 1/4 teaspoon of ground cloves, and half a teaspoon of ground nutmeg. If you're using a can of pumpkin puree, skip to the time code on screen because I'm going to be showing you how to make it. To start, take your pumpkins and cut the stems off. Then cut them in half and scrape out the seeds and the pulp. It's fine if there's a little bit of pulp remaining because it's virtually impossible to get it all out. Next, we're going to place them face down in a baking pan and bake them at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 35 to 45 minutes or until the flesh is soft. When they come out, we're going to remove the skin. If it's done baking, it should peel off relatively easily. Now, if you're a normal person, you can use a spoon to remove the flesh, or if, like me, you have absolutely no regard for your own safety or physical well-being, you can just straight up peel it off with your bare hands like an animal. It's like I've never said before, you're not a chef until you touch things that are at dangerously high temperatures without a second thought. Anyway, once that's done, place it in a food processor or a blender and pulverize it until it looks something like this. The puree will probably be pretty watery, so to fix that, place it in cheesecloth and a mesh sieve over a bowl for about 20 to 30 minutes or until most of the excess moisture has been drained. Finally, in order to release as much pumpkin flavor as possible, we're going to place it on a large skillet over low heat and cook for 15 minutes. Don't go any higher or else some of the pumpkin might burn and stick to your pan. I got this technique from a commenter on Joshua Weissman's pumpkin pie video, whose name I have absolutely no idea how to pronounce, so thank you to them. After the full 15 minutes, remove it from heat and place it in a bowl. Congratulations, you have now made pumpkin puree completely from scratch. If you want to store it, simply cover it in saran wrap, making sure it completely covers the surface of the puree, and refrigerate. According to the USDA, that can last in the fridge for about 3 to 4 days. Now we're going to make sweetened condensed milk. If you're using a can, skip to this time code. All we have to do is combine 3 cups of milk, half a cup of heavy cream, 1.5 cups of sugar, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla in a medium saucepan and place that on medium-high heat until it starts to simmer. Then turn the heat down to medium-low and cook for a full hour and a half or until it's significantly reduced, stirring very frequently. If you don't stir enough, you may get some burnt caramel on the bottom of your pan, which is basically impossible to clean. When it's done cooking, it should be roughly this consistency, and when it's at room temperature, it should be a bit thicker. And that's it. Next, we're going to blind bake the crust. To do this, lay your pie dough out in the center of a pie tin, cut off the excess, and make a nice pattern on the edges. This is not a nice pattern since I have absolutely no idea how to do one of those. Then, place some parchment paper in it, pour in some pie weights to prevent bubbling, and bake at 425 degrees Fahrenheit for 12 to 14 minutes. Unfortunately, when I tried to set my timer, it didn't work, so I ended up baking it for an additional 10 minutes, so my crust is overdone on the edges. Finally, we're going to make our filling. All we have to do is combine 15 ounces of our pumpkin puree, 1.5 cups of sweetened condensed milk, and a 1/4 cup of heavy cream in a medium bowl. Then add 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, half a teaspoon of ground nutmeg, half a teaspoon of ground cloves, and 2 eggs. I somehow forgot the eggs. Pour it into your pie crust and bake that in the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. It's supposed to cook for 35 minutes, but mine took quite a bit longer, so don't panic if yours isn't done. After about 5 minutes, I realized that I forgot the eggs, so I panically removed it from the oven, poured as much of the filling as I could back into the bowl, added the eggs, poured it back into the pie tin, realized it didn't combine very well, tried to mix it while it was in the tin, realized that was a dumb idea, poured it back into the bowl, finished combining it, poured it back into the tin, and finally put it back in the oven. Anyway, that's going to be baking for a while, so while we wait, let's talk about pumpkin pie. Pumpkin pie consists of a crust containing a filling made from pumpkin puree, evaporated or sweetened condensed milk, seasonings, and occasionally sugar or cornstarch. My recipe is inspired by All Recipes, Sally's Baking Addiction, Tastes Better from Scratch, Preppy Kitchen, Joshua Weissman, Epicurious, and Babish, so huge thank you to everyone, all their links are in the description. I came up with this recipe a few weeks ago while I was doing history homework. I was listening to YouTube and Ryan George's Halloween sketch compilation started playing. I realized that I had nothing planned for this channel for Halloween, and so I ditched my week overdue halfway done history homework and spent the next 2 hours coming up with this recipe. Pie dates back to ancient Greece. Apologies in advance for my butchered pronunciation. They made a dish that consisted of a crust filled with meat called ortokreas. However, they did not use a top shell. That wasn't done until the days of the Romans, who tended to use a full shell as a preservative measure and would throw it out afterwards. Eventually, though, they began to use edible dough for small pies. For most of history, pies were almost exclusively filled with meat. At Henry VI's coronation, they served partridge and peacock pie. Sweet pies were rarely, if ever, made until the 15th century when custard pies became popular in England. Pumpkin pie specifically wasn't created until pumpkins were exported to France and introduced to England. Anyway, let's get back to cooking. After about 50 minutes, my pie was finished baking, so I took it out of the oven. When it's finished baking, it should have a slightly rigid structure but with a small bubble in the center that wiggles when shaken. Place it on a cooling rack for a few minutes, and then you're done. Finally, you can cut it up, plate it, and then it's time to taste. Alright, so far 6 pumpkins have died for this. Let's see if their sacrifice is worth anything. That's not fully cooked, but wow, that's good. It was very good. It was a lot sweeter than any pumpkin pie I'd had, while still retaining those warmer flavors you normally get. The pumpkin flavor was also a lot more emphasized than in most pumpkin pies. My only complaints are that the crust I made was terrible and messed with the texture, and that the filling structure wasn't quite as solid as it should have been. Overall though, I would consider this a success. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. It means a lot and helps me do these kinds of projects in the future. Also, we recently hit 100 subscribers, so thank you all so much. I want to do something to celebrate, but I have absolutely no idea what. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!